Hi, hey, and all those other greetings, Spade Adventures. I'm Jake Spence, welcoming you guys back to my gaming and unboxing channel, where today we have part 2 of the Sonic movie franchise unboxing videos, where we talk about all the different stuff from the movies through the Build-A-Bear plush line. Today's character is going to be Tails, the second character who's from the Sonic franchise to be introduced inside of the movies, who has 2 tails and is in the second movie. There we go. Had to really stretch out the amount of 2s that we had so that I could just completely shove the number 2 right into your face. But before I get to saying too many 2s, let's introduce today's character through the portal ring that Sonic thankfully let me borrow. Today's character is Tails Miles Prower, also known as Tails. Bet you can't guess why. Yeah, because he has 2 tails.
I wanna fly high so I can reach the highest of all the heavens. Somebody will be waiting for me, so I have gotta fly higher.
So at the end credits of the first Sonic movie, we see a bunch of leaves swirling around the air. We see a portal open, and who comes out of it but Tails the motherfrickin' Fox. Not only does he end up coming out with a beautiful design, might I add, very fluffy, very cute, but he comes out with the voice of Colleen, who voices Tails in the video game franchise for Sonic the Hedgehog and has been for good about 10 years. Not only was seeing Tails such an amazing feeling, as it not only implied that we would get the second movie, but it was also just amazing to see yet another Sonic character make a debut on the silver screen. But we also got to see, in my opinion, one of, if not the best voice actress for Tails. Her voice is so spot on for this character, it's ridiculous. So, as promised, let's start talking about the Sonic movie 2, which means that we are going to have some beginning spoilers for the movie. Sorry, that's just how this goes. Mostly it's going to be focusing on Tails' portion of it. So essentially the movie ends up starting with Eggman stranded on the Mushroom Planet where we left him off at the first movie. Eggman ends up using one of Sonic's quills to end up calling out a signal into the universe where he ends up meeting up with Knuckles, and he convinces Knuckles to help him to end up going over to Earth to try to beat the ever-loving Blue out of the Hedgehog we know and love. Now, Tails, who is assumably still in Mobius, ends up seeing the signal that Eggman has sent out and seeing that Sonic is in danger from Eggman and Knuckles coming for Sonic. So Tails decides to haul out of his village where he's being bullied and ends up going to Earth, and the first thing he does is steal a police car. Yes, the first thing he does as an 8-year-old is hot ride a police car and steal it. In 8 seconds, Tails became an Earth felon, and nobody talks about it. But fortunately, this does help a ton when Knuckles and Eggman end up confronting Sonic, and the battle isn't going well, and Tails legit just hits Knuckles with the car. Yeah, so already, that's 2 felonies, Tails. I'm watching you. I'm watching. You've got a criminal history now. Fortunately for Knuckles, Knuckles is okay, which is also unfortunate for Tails and Sonic. This is actually the first time inside of the movie franchise that these characters are meeting. Now, there isn't a lot of fanfare inside of the Sonic series to how these two met, as in Sonic Adventure, we find out that Tails was being bullied. He saw Sonic running in the Mystic Ruins. He thought, wow, that guy is super cool, and he decided to follow him. Inside of this story, he ends up finding Sonic's plane. Why does Sonic have a plane? I don't know. Why does the Flash have a car, and Wonder Woman have a plane? Or a jet? These are many questions that we have, that we just have to get over because it exists. But for whatever reason, Sonic has a plane called the Tornado. In the game universe, he ends up souping up the tornado, and, well, they become friends because Sonic's like, oh, hey, that's neat, you can do that, and Tails ends up essentially teaching Sonic how to spin dash. Sonic teaches Tails that he can fly with his tails. Very wholesome, very short, sweet, but it shows why they have such a strong connection and how they kind of just ended up relying on each other, more so Tails for Sonic in the video game universe. Well, that backstory isn't there because in the movie universe, as stated, he ended up seeing Sonic and going towards him. Now, you might be like, wait a second. How does he know Sonic? So, before this moment, when Sonic ended up initially sending off his EMP in the first movie at the baseball stadium, Tails ended up receiving that signal and thought it was interesting. Since he was an outcast, he decided to just see what this blue hedgehog was doing, and yeah, they essentially just set up the idea that ever since that moment, he had been stalking Sonic, which also included when Sonic would take a shower and a bath. If Sonic wasn't an anthropomorphic hedgehog who was constantly not wearing clothes other than shoes and gloves anyway, yeah, this would definitely be a lot more creepy. In a sort of way as well, this is also kind of the same thing that Sonic was doing to the humans, but we saw it as cute because he's an anthropomorphic hedgehog, and I've been saying this entire time, if it was that old design and it was creepy, or now called ugly Sonic, ending up staring into a baseball field of children, that would have been creepy. So essentially, Tails ended up stalking Sonic, who stalked the humans. But because it's a Sonic movie, again, we're not mentioning this. So, yeah, he just blatantly admits this over to Sonic, admitting that he ended up doing a universal felony, I guess? 2 different dimensions, 2 different universes. But possibly because of this whole thing that Sonic was doing, he just kind of brushes it off in like 3 seconds, which, sure, the following him and seeing what he was doing because you thought he was cool is a little bit weird. And, you know, hard to be like, what? It's mostly the bathing thing that's just strange. But again, they completely go past this. So at this point, essentially Sonic and Tails end up becoming friends. Weird thing to bond about, but I guess it's something they have in common. But another thing that they end up bonding with is an almost near-death experience. Tails ends up accidentally mistranslating something to the waitress, she thinks it's an insult, and then they decide to drag Sonic and Tails into a fire. Pretty extreme, but okay. And how is this resolved, you asked? A dance fight. Yeah, it's not the worst, and honestly, this dance fight, it's kind of cheesy, which works for the Sonic franchise. First time watching it, I got a little bit nervous about this, just because I was like, okay, this is maybe a little bit too cheesy. They had the guy they did the dance battle against rip his shirt off, and he had a tattoo of himself doing the exact same pose, which was a T-pose. But they have this dance-off, and where this becomes kind of neat is that Tails uses his technology after they switch the music to Uptown Funk. And he ends up essentially doing a bunch of holograms to have Sonic and Tails flying all around, different variants of them, and it just was really neat. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that this dancing is actually in the Sonic franchise in a sort of weird way, as the completion bonus for Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal is actually Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, I believe Amy and Styx doing a dance. So there you go. Now you know this. But long story short, they end up winning the dance battle, have to do it so they can get the map, grab the map, and they go back on their way. Now, after this, essentially stuff ends up happening to where Tails gets knocked out, and he doesn't really do much until like the final scenes, which I will be talking about later. So one really cool aspect is while this is going on, they have Tom and his wife going to Rachel's wedding, and they have a bunch of scenes there, but during the wedding, they bring in the tornado to have a poster that is saying Rachel and Randall forever. And they later use this tornado, and oh my god, dude, it's so freaking cool that they actually brought the tornado in. They found a way to make it natural because Sonic wouldn't have a plane in this universe. So the fact that they used that and actually had it for a while was just really super cool. Anyway, though, I'm sorry if that was a lot of information, and I apologize if that was fairly jumbled. I get very excited talking about this stuff, and I've actually been sitting here for a bit doing all this. Anyway, though, let's actually look at the plush. Well, going on to one of the first things I like to mention for the Tails plush, any Tails plush, is the little hair tuft. Now, I believe in the movie this is a little bit fluffier. However, what they ended up going with is they did the flat felt approach. Plush like Toy Network end up doing it where it's connected to the head and it's fluffed. Some do it kind of a mixture where it's a separate piece, and then others do it where it's this flat type of thing. When they do this flat type of thing, it is very flimsy. I haven't had any of these degrade, though I don't really like mess around with these as I'm a collector now, so I'm not really going to be flailing him around and being like, woo, Tails can fly, woo, So not too much of a worry of that going bad. Going into that, we have his floppy ears, and surprisingly, these are keeping up relatively well, just like with the Sonic plush. Very, very well made. Now, again, this is another thing that has been different on so many plush. Some, it is very well stuffed, again, like Toy Network, or it's like this flatter texture where it's one felt on this side to have a design, and then the rest on the back so that it flows better. Now, normally these kind of flop all over the place. For Tails, it's not that bad, but for this, it's actually really stiff, and I really enjoy that. The inside of the ear is also a very nice fluff, probably same fluff as the muzzle, but not as the eye, because the eye looks a little fluffier, probably a little bit closer to this right here. Now, of course, if we're going to be talking about the muzzle, we might as well completely talk about it. So, we have another part, which is very similar to this, where Tails has a little bit of fluff on his muzzles, like the little fox whiskers. I always thought it was really cute that they did these little like tufts of fur, and I'm just now realizing, if you look at it from the right angle, oh, there's four spokes on there. I thought it was just 3. I was gonna say it kind of is like Sonic's hedges, which is really neat. But yeah, just like this part, these are just one little felt of fabric stitched together and placed on the plush. But again, these aren't flimsy at all. They're actually pretty stiff and pretty stable. So great job, Build-A-Bear, fantastic. Back onto the eyes, we have, instead of having any eyebrows or anything like that, Tails has a very like calm and gentle face, so he has no eyebrows. Because that's the meaning of being calm, having no eyebrows. But what he does have, and you can see, is around the eyes you have a bit of embroidery, which goes around the fluff of the whites of his eyes, and then the rest of his pupil, all of that, the blue, the black, the white, that in and of itself is embroidered. From there, one thing that's always been interesting for Tails is he doesn't actually have the long nose that a lot of these Sonic characters have, generally the Hedgehog characters. Instead, he has a stout nose. And that stout nose can either be a felt, it can be like a very thin piece, or what one of my favorites is when they do this little shiny gumdrop on there. Now, of course, it does look a little bit strange being the fact that his nose is just ultra shiny. Like, it's like he just took a black pearl and just slapped it on his face, and there we go. Tails' snot is going to be worth a lot of money, but also looks great on him. So again, a little weird, but I actually do really like the look of that. And then down there, one thing that's pretty much always consistent with Tails is that he will usually have a smile in the center of his face, and it will usually be a nice, peaceful, gentle smile. So, looks pretty nice. Going from there, we have his chest fur, which most Tails plush actually have it be to where they have these right there, but smaller. These usually get in the way of the arms, so it's nice to see they're actually not here. But I believe that they did this because I'm pretty sure the movie design, it just has a bunch of big fluff for the white there, and it doesn't actually have the tufts going out. It's more subtle, so they can get away with doing stuff like that and saving a little bit of cost and making it a little bit more preservable for the future. So I do actually really like that. Now, something you might notice also is this sticker. This sticker we'll get to at the end, but it is actually important because there is a voice box in this guy, and I did actually get the voice box version, so let's go. Going from there, we have Tails having his very soft gloves. His hands are very flat, but they actually look a little bit better than Sonic's because they're less stuffed. He is a bit smaller, so he doesn't need as much fluff either. Well, we might as well turn him around and show you his namesake, his Tails. Now, as I keep saying for this plush, a lot of Tails plush have so many different variants of how to do this because he has a lot of loose pieces. His tails are no different. I believe that they had it like this so that you could easily sit him down, but they are very... This is pretty common for certain ones. However, some tails go straight. Some are put in more of a propeller, like the Jack-specific figures, and then other times, it's put stitched to his head. This time, though, it has a mixture where it's curved, but it's also just very floppy. So it's not like you could pretend to spin them, but you could at least have them, like, move back and forth, I guess. No. So the Tails designs look pretty good. Personally, I do think I would have them straight. There is an original Build-A-Bear of Tails, and I do believe that it is straight, but he was weirdly set more of as an accessory than an actual full-on Build-A-Bear plush, which is just bizarre. But the tails themselves have the same fabric going onto the tails, and then they have a little bit of an embroidered bit with a harder fabric for the white, almost feeling kind of cardboardy and surprisingly very unstuffed, maybe to represent more of the tip of the tail, though I do like when Tails has the more puffy end of that, because it just, I don't know, it just looks a little bit nicer to me. I guess if they're flat, though, it works better as a helicopter blade, so fair enough. Back onto the front, though, we have his non-detachable shoes. Honestly, I really like this a lot better. The socks themselves are still that white fabric, but the rest of it is just more so this silk type. And Tails' shoe design is actually very similar in the movies as the actual games, having the white parts being the exact same, front half just being white, and the red parts having a little bit more of a detail, having kind of a Velcro type in there. So that looks pretty good. You've got some white stitching on them as well to make it look more natural, and his soles are black. Since these aren't the accessories, they don't have the Build-A-Bear branding on it, but instead have a Sonic Movie 2 logo on there. That's actually just pretty much painted on, so it doesn't really feel too rough, and feels pretty natural. And the tag itself is just the same tag for the movie brand. All right, well, before we end off this episode, let's hear a few words from Tails.
Everyone calls me Tails.
Alrighty, so I don't actually know how many voice clips are in this chip, but if you do know, feel free to let me know down below. I think it might be 5, and knowing my luck, I probably pressed it 4 times. Because that's the type of thing I would do. Anyway, though, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, show us out there with no love, brother, mother, sister, father, iguana, and let me know, what did you guys think of the Sonic movie 2? Sonic 2, the movie. Either way, let me know. Personally, I really loved the movie, even on my second watch, and it was so fun to see in theaters. There was so many references in the movie. Oh my gosh, I might talk about that on Knuckles' part, because, like, oh man, it was fantastic how many references there were. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed, and keep your toes safe, or your tails safe. Yeah. Okay. Fly out! Gotta get a good thumbnail shot with this tails.